So I'm sitting in the Catholic Worker House here on 26th Street with somebody I love and care about very much. Um, Dorothy Day of Denver is what I always call her. But I'm sitting here with Anna Koop. Anna, can you tell us a little bit about who you are?
Well, I'm a sister of Loretto, and I have a long term relationship with the Catholic worker movement, and probably many of the wonderful people I've met. It's been through that relationship. Um, I know Arnie because he and I stood on the sidewalk in front of the Capitol for, we think, close to 15 years. Is that right?
I don't know. That sounds about right.
Yeah, with signs that said war is not the answer. And so he's one of my peace buddies. And um, so I have a long term relationship with pacifism as a very major part of what the Catholic worker movement is about. Um, Also, my relationship with the movement has been hospitality. For 38 years, I lived in a Catholic worker house that burned, and for a couple of years, the Catholic worker was homeless, and so we decided to do some fundraising, which never had I hoped to be my job. I, I really reluctantly agreed to do some fundraising, but had two very wonderful people who helped me out with that. Um, well, more than two, really. Father Tom McCormick helped me go to the diocese and beg, and they did give us some money. And then Cole Chandler, who had done so much work with the Colorado Village Collaborative, um, creating tiny home villages, um, and was quite the fundraiser and gave me lots of good advice. And then Jennifer Haynes, who is the manager of the housing within which this Catholic worker house is. It's about a half a block of housing for low income residents, a group of folks connected to the worker founded it and created a nonprofit that holds this property in perpetuity for low income rentals. And you know, that's how we try to function, a bit alternative from the money grabbing development and
Oh yeah.
gentrification movements, etc., etc. So we were fortunate enough to, with the help of the Laredo community, we got a $200,000 no interest loan, which was, you know, saved us thousands of dollars, and which we managed to pay off in 15 years, which was our agreement with them. So there were a lot of players in that little drama of gathering the money. We had some money in the budget from the old house. Did I say the old house burned?
Yeah.
Yeah, and and hadn't spent that money during the 2 years we weren't doing hospitality. So that was a little starter for being able to purchase this house within the housing that we were all already managing and self-sustaining. So this is a baby Catholic worker in the sense that it is less than half the size of the house on Welton Street, and it's 4 bedroom, but you know, kind of a nice atmosphere too. When you people always say when they walk in, "Oh, this is just like a regular house." Well, it is. It's a little extraordinary in how it functions, but and who is here?
Who is here?
Yeah, we're focusing on immigrants. So we have a father and his son from the Congo. He went from the Congo to Brazil, and then from Brazil up here, and he is applying for asylum. We have a woman and her 4-year-old autistic son, one of the cutest little guys you've ever seen. He's in constant motion. It's like watching a ballet. He's just a darling kid. Um, and they are from Venezuela. And then we have 2 people who were former guests on Welton Street. One helped found Denver Homeless Out Loud, and the other lived at the Catholic Worker House for a few years and has lived here for the duration of her uh, time. Uh, I guess we've been here about 5 years. 2016, yeah. Fire was in 2016, 18, yeah, 23.
So Anna, you've been doing this hospitality work and peace work and social justice work for a long time. Why?
How can you not do it? Uh, I guess I worked for Denver Catholic Community Services for a while, and they sent me to graduate school. Big mistake. In Washington, D.C. at Catholic University. And so I got a master's in social work there. And it wasn't long before I kind of denounced that because I could see how clearly it was focused on getting people to adjust to systems that are just terrible and don't change their lives for the most part, and dehumanize them. And I just came to the conclusion that I needed to be doing something more reactive to that kind of system. So I created at Denver Catholic Community Services an advocacy department. And that department was focused on housing. And we did some work on tenant landlord law, and we did a lot of work sort of with the city, involving the city. Um, it started with putting a tent up in the parking lot of the Eastside Action Center, which was on Welton, just a couple blocks from where our house ended up being. And as luck would have it, the night people were in that tent, it snowed, and a lot of press came and said, "What are you doing?" And we said, "We're asking for housing for homeless people and asking for the city's response to that need. And we'd like to create a mayor's housing task force." And so we did that, and I was part of a two-person team who facilitated that and was beyond the passage of some pretty good housing policy that would help the homeless situation. I, I continue to be involved with homelessness, both on the state level and the city level. Eventually, I decided that politicians, by and large, were not interested in the same people I was. And so I said to myself, well, maybe what you need to do is create some kind of housing for people. And I had a year sabbatical, uh, and that was because I was involved in revealing that the Archdiocese was arranging to be the landlord of the office of the CIA. And so another area that I became involved in resisting, and that, you know, there was some press around that, and eventually I was kindly asked. Well, what happened was I asked to be located in a building that would not be that building, and they, Catholic Community Services, denied that, and basically it was the end of my job with Catholic Community Services. And I did take a sabbatical year, went to Santa Fe, um, did a lot of praying and some wood carving and some reconnoitering around what was next. And during that time, I decided I wanted to return to Denver to explore a Catholic worker here. And came back here and called together our first meeting, about 50 people who were interested in creating a Catholic worker in Denver. And it went on from there. In 1978, we had the house on Welton Street, 9 bedrooms, um, great location, um, and we were there till 2016 when it burned. So that was 38 years there, and then actually I was in an apartment next door to this Catholic worker house, in respite space that I went to weekly for a night away from the worker. The person who actually is the manager of this half block of housing, our low income housing, was in Florida. And when she came home, I said, Jennifer, the house burned and I'm here. And she very graciously welcomed me, and that's where I've been since 2016.
Wow.
Um, so, uh, more or less, I mean, 38 years on Welton, another 5 here, um, 5 or 6, yeah. And so I'm hoping at some point in the not too long future be able to celebrate 50 years of the worker in Denver.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
Wow.
But if not, it'll be here.
So I know, Anna, you took a vow of poverty, right?
Right.
What is that? What is that? What is a
Yeah.
vow of poverty, and why did you do it?
Yeah. Well, um, in the context of Catholic religious sisters, that is part of becoming a vowed member. There's three vows we take: poverty, chastity, and obedience. And I entered in 1968, so you can imagine how things were changing in the world in the 60s and early 70s. And so a lot of how we interpreted the vows shifted also. And the vow of poverty, you'd really have to say, had to do with embracing a simple lifestyle. Um, if we look at our lives compared to people's lives all over the world, it is not really uh, a life of poverty. We don't want for food, we don't want for a roof over our heads, we don't want for transportation for the most part. But that was also a time when, there was a movement afoot where people were saying, well, how can I consume so much when other people have so little? And so people were thinking about that even apart from religious life.
And they still are people.
Yeah, yeah, I'd say so. I mean, there are a lot of young people who have gotten the message that this world may not be too long for remaining functional because of the climate crisis, because of, I mean, a war in the Ukraine and Russia. For what? For what? What is being gained by that? And our country is contributing to it. It just breaks my heart that that is how it is, and that we are complicit. We are complicit. No matter what we say, we're cooperating with that. And things aren't going to change until people stop cooperating with those kinds of things, I think.
Yeah, yeah. And what about the other vows?
Well, um, obedience is seen, I think, very differently than it was 50 years ago. 50 years ago, you adhered very closely to Catholic teaching. And at some point, you looked and around you and you saw that uh, most people weren't really adhering to that. You also saw that there were some areas in which you shouldn't be, like the doctrine of discovery, which just recently the Pope um, repudiated, but not completely enough. Um, and so you look at those things. You look at how gay people are treated, trans people are treated in communities of worshiping people. What's going on? What's
Yeah,
going on?
yeah. How do you reconcile that?
Yeah, how do I reconcile it all? Well, um, thank God I'm a sister of Loretto, because there's a lot of um, con- consciousness about these things. And um, there are, for instance, we have a Loretto Feminist Network that works on women's rights. We have a Loretto Latin American Committee, works a lot on the border, um, sponsoring trips to the border so that people can see what's happening. We have a peace committee in the community. So lots of things are going on in the community that I really support and feel very at home in and feel really supported. I mean, just look at when I tell you that the community gave us $200,000 interest free for 15 years. I mean, that's amazing. Um, and so, I mean, I think, and not that the community hasn't in the past experienced conflict around who chooses what issue and how they choose to act on it. We've had women in jail. I've been in jail more than once. And we we have had women who say, "Oh, please don't do that," in the community, um, because they have another concept of what it is to be Catholic. Um, and we have, as part of our constitutions, the statement that we pledge ourselves to listen to one another so as to be modified by one another. So bottom line is we don't just say, don't do that, or I'm I'm so disappointed in you, or whatever. No, we say this is why I don't agree with you. And I've been I was at a demonstration where a group of us were making a statement to the bishops about um, war, and right across the street from us was another sister of Loretto who had a banner that said, "We support the bishops." So, there is that kind of range of within the community, and that kind of pledge to listen to one another so as to be modified in thought and action. And that's a pretty good combination. I mean, would that our whole culture felt like that.
Yeah. But you guys are the sisters of Loretto troublemakers.
Yeah. We've been known as that at times. Yeah.
So Anna, where are you from?
I'm from Minnesota. Yeah, sure, Minnesota, the land of 10,000 lakes. Had a wonderful childhood. My grandparents built a lovely cottage on a lake that I had the privilege of spending summers at after from about maybe 11 to 18, and then shorter periods of time after that. Just really much closer to nature, and a sense of community on the shoreline. I mean, people who really related to each other, and so that was a really special upbringing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I know one of the reasons you came out here is because you were a skier. Right?
Oh, that's right. I came to Colorado to ski, and and minimally after I became a sister of Loretto, because skiing outpriced me. I mean, it really got expensive, but I just loved skiing. And, after graduate school, got my first pair of skis and spent a lot of my time off work uh, on the hills skiing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. I loved it. Yeah. And as far as the community goes, I always say if the community would not have accepted me, I probably would have joined some hippie commune. Because I really, number one, was interested in community, and number two, was interested in some kind of alternative to the consumer warmongering culture that I knew. Yeah.
Well, you kind of did join the hippie commune. This is a Catholic hippie commune.
Yeah, some might say that. But there are a lot of other sisters who are doing great things too, for sure. Other communities as well.
So, Anna, I know there's lots of stories from the old Catholic worker house. Does any one particular come to mind?
Oh, well, let's see, to sort out one. I remember one night when the father of a volunteer who was a pastor, a Lutheran pastor from Boulder, Kathy Carfrey, did you know her?
No, I don't think I did.
She's the person who runs the new housing for the Episcopalians over on Washington.
Okay.
Um, so anyhow, her dad came to do a kind of a what we call clarification of thought, and we would invite a variety of people to come in and have a discussion with us about this or that. So he had come, and there were a gathering of people in the living room, and this man who was the husband of one of the guests strode in to the living room with a gun in his hand and said, I'm, I'm going to shoot you, whatever. And I said, could you come here for a minute? And we went into the hall, and I said, you know, really, if you did that, it would be so bad for you. You would end up in jail and giving up a lot of your freedom, and you would not have accomplished anything. And we talked and talked, and finally I said, you need to leave now. And he did, willingly, which was nice. And that's, you know, we have a lot of trust.
That took a lot of courage, Anna.
A lot of trust that God is with us at these moments, and that it doesn't help to come down with some harsh, you son of a, you know.
Yeah, that would not have helped in that situation.
No, and you of all people understand that. You've had, I'm sure, many experiences yourself that were scary, threatening. Um, it's part of our lives, and I think we have to come to grips with the fact that it will be part of our lives, and that we have to figure out how we're going to manage with it. And I think a lot of people have to figure that out. Yeah.
So Anna, if there was like a 25-year-old Anna, and she saw where you are now, what would she think? Would she be disappointed, happy, proud?
Well, I don't think I knew then what was going to unfold. Something that had a huge influence on me was that in my high school years, I kind of became pretty avidly Catholic. And even in a way that I would have, that I think now was, oh, really, Anna? I mean, like being at a dance and someone turns the lights off and I turn them back on. You know, it was like a little over the top. And my mother was not Catholic, and So she was pretty fearful about my becoming a nun. And I didn't think at that time that was the route I was going, but I was very intent on going to a Catholic college because I met someone who suggested that might be a good place for me to be, and I looked at it and I thought, oh yeah, this is exciting. I want to learn more about this. And went through many, many tearful nights with my mother. My father died when I was in high school. He was a Catholic, where she just did not want me to go there because I think probably this kind of internal fear that I might become a nun. Um, and I wasn't thinking about becoming a nun then. So, but anyway, I pulled a terrible card on her, which was, well, if you won't let me go there, I just won't go to college. And she was intently interested in her girls getting a college education. So in some ways, she was kind of a feminist in her day, and and that kind of turned the tide. And the oldest boy in the family was then working for the stock market, and he agreed to give some money toward my education, and my mother was teaching. And so, despite the fact that she didn't really want me there, she made it possible, which I've always thought that was such a huge thing for her to do for me during what was, some might say a kind of bratty stage. Others might say finding my own voice. Both were probably true. So, I think I loved my time there. And in the middle of it, another brother who worked for the State Department invited my mother to a post he had in Afghanistan, actually invited me too, but it was before I graduated from college. And so, oh no, I don't want to go now. I want to graduate with my friends. So the two of them went, and I started boarding at the college. And that was a great experience too. I loved it. I just loved it. Matter of fact, they had to pack my trunk for me because I was kind of malingering after graduation. Uh, but yeah, that was the right place for me. And eventually, when I did join the Sisters of Loretto, um, I think it was hard on my mother because she had all these images like the nun story. I don't know if you ever saw that movie, but it just revealed all the harsh aspects of it rather than anything kind of inspirational. So um, it, it was hard for her, but eventually she could see how happy I was. So I think it ended up being okay. Yeah.
I bet she's very proud of you where she was.
Well,
And she still is.
there were some things she had to, like at the point when at the worker we were building pine coffins, um, and I think that was kind of hard on her. And we had like international responses to that. People, I don't know, New Zealand, Germany, whatever, that we were trying to simplify the burial process. And so there was, and eventually my mother, who was kind of, she was kind of a status seeker, She asked for one of those pine coffins for herself.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. So she she resolved some things she felt there.
I gotta ask you, do you still sleep on
Yeah, I
your
do.
casket?
Yeah, yeah. No, wait, it's not my pine casket. It's a different wooden base. So I don't.
But you
Actually,
did
I
for
think
many.
Michelle maybe has mine with a mattress on it.
Ah.
Yeah.
But it's still a bed.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Uh,
And I had a bunch of years on it before the fire. Michelle, one of the things I remember about the fire is that Michelle, one of the former guests and current guests, gave me these um, sheets that were made out of just the most comfortable material. I mean, they were just extraordinary. And they were on that bed when the fire happened. And I couldn't give them up. One little edge is burned, and I still use them. They're summer sheets.
Great.
Yeah, yeah.
Great.
But no, I don't sleep on that base, but I sleep on another wooden base. Yeah.
So finally, Anna, I just want to ask you, what keeps you going? This is a real hard world.
Oh boy.
There's a lot of suffering,
Yeah,
and
that is
you were
right.
talking about, the environment, and
Yep.
what keeps you going? What gives you the strength to just keep on going?
Yeah, I think it's community, Arnie. It's other people who share my values and who continue to work on these things into their 80s and 90s. And I mean, just yesterday, do you watch Amy Goodman at all?
Oh, sure.
Every day I watch her. And yeah, so Daniel Ellsberg, 90 something. And what an amazing man. And some of these people have been to the worker on Welton. Uh, and I was in one of the Rocky Flats trials that Daniel Ellsberg was a part of. And, so it's like what keeps me going. Angela Davis, when she came to town, I mean, people like this who have been in the struggle for years and years and years and continue to do what they can. Um, I think, love, I guess, keeps me in it, uh, both giving it and receiving it from people, as well as some real deep knowing that things have got to change.
Yeah.
Believing that they will.
Well, a lot of people really love Anna Koop. I know that.
Oh. How do you know, Arnie?
Because everybody tells me. And I tell them.
Yeah, I know you do. You're so good.
So, is there any other thoughts? What would you like people to know about Anna Koop?
Oh,
About your life?
I think they should concentrate on their own life. Not my life. Though oftentimes I think after good friends die, well, the best way I can honor that person is to do what that person did or does in some way. Um, but everybody has goodness in them, and they don't need to look to me for that. Just can look within and find it in themselves.
Well, I just want to tell you how much I love you and I care about you and respect you.
Oh, you're so good, Arnie. Thank you, and I do all the same for you, igualmente. Yeah.
Thank you, Anna.
Yeah, thank you. And we stayed well within the time.
Yeah.
So I guess at some point you'll send me a link to. Oh, you said you'll send me the recording.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I'm not too worried about that, but I probably should look
well,
at
you
it.
didn't talk bad about anybody. Not that you ever would. But yeah.
Yeah.
But I mean, you should listen to it anyway, just
Yeah.
because it's you.
Yeah.
Can I take a picture of you?
So, what do you really hope for, Arnie, with these YouTubies?
I just think they're important that people hear. I mean, I know, like, I only get tens. I only get like tens of people that listen to this. I mean, it's not hundreds of people, but I think it's just important to like have people's voices and thoughts